Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Colossus Tactic event in which the Spectral Colossus is added to the game. This is also an interesting week for Gems of War, as it is the first ever week-long Vault event. They're doing this for St. Patrick's Day, and it's more like St. Patrick's Week at this point. So instead of having Guild Wars, which has now been moved about 2 weeks forward, we are now getting a week-long treasure event, or Vault event. The first time we've ever had one for this long a duration. I believe the longest prior was a 4-day one. And obviously normally they're a 3-day one on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. However, it's going on all week, as you can see, another 6 days and 20 hours at this exact moment in time. So definitely a good time to be farming. I did cover a whole video going over some teams and everything, so we won't be touching on it too much here, but it's a pretty standard Vault event. Just make sure to grind it out, use teams for whatever optimal location you want to do it, either really low level if you want to just spam loot, or very high level if you still want to try getting those new mimics that end up coming in version 6.2. So of course, version 6.2 did a few things, added like several troops, added this like little pass thing that you've probably seen an icon for. There's also a bunch more troops that you can end up getting this way. These are in the drop table, and one of them, oddly enough, I believe is in the event key drop table right now, the Garden Warden, because he's from Sword's Edge. This guy right here, I believe, is in the event key drop table right now. He should be. He's in the gold key drop table, so you can get him that way. You can also get him here from this little key thing. However, you can also just simply get him from event keys this week, so quite a few ways to get that little guy. But yeah, they added a bunch of troops. Most of them are pretty underwhelming. There is one that's like kind of okay, or a few that are kind of okay, like this guy that does a bunch of explodes with an extra turn. There's already other goblins that are pretty decent, and he can kind of be incorporated some teams, but there's already just so many other options that goblins already have. Aside from that, probably one of the most noteworthy things is the new mimics. So whenever you're going through Explore now, basically every time you click on this boss chest, there is a chance that when you do it, you'll end up getting a mimic battle, and that'll end up giving you 2 times the amount of tokens that you would normally end up getting. And then after that 2 times battle, there's a small chance that you'll end up getting a 5 times battle. And off that 5 times battle, not only will you be getting, well, 5 times the tokens, however, you will also be getting a chance at a new mythic that was actually added in the most recent patch, which is by far one of the hardest things to get in the entire game. It's actually the only thing we're missing right now. The Horde Mimic. It is basically like a stone hammer, except it's even tankier, just with a different ability. It has around 82.5% score reduction due to how it multiplicitly gets added, since it's a 70% reduction and a 25% reduction from that 70%, or vice versa. I'm not sure exact order that it does, but it results in about an 82.5% reduction while having an impervious, so really absurdly tanky, while having some ways to protect it even with those immunities. The biggest issue that it has as a downside is this ability is pretty bloated, and similar to Stonehammer, you'd almost get better value just from using our Golgotha, even though it's only a 75% reduction without as many immunes. It does have cleanse off its ability and has a lot of mana accumulation off its ability, whereas this thing is extremely random and going to be extremely inconsistent. It can be okay on the instances where you end up landing like a Devour or an Armor Tear on all enemies. However, it also could be really bad more often than not. So to a degree, you're almost never really going to be using this unless you just want to build a really weird kind of tanky team, kind of trying to build it around it. But I would not really advise using it once you do end up having it. It's more so just something for collection purposes. It's just super hard to get. There's also an achievement attached to it, which almost no one seems to have at the moment, though there are some people that have gotten it, of course. But it's also associated to Dragon's Claw, so you do get an extra star that way. But that was most of what was added in the patch, not really too much. They did a few like interface stuff, some things for future things, which is why I didn't really do a designated video on it, as it's a pretty small amount of stuff. Anyways, let's go grab our tribute and go over everything for the week. So let's start with the new troop that was added. So this is basically a worse core Knight Coronet. You can get some yellow blue arcanes if you need it though, so you can stock up there. As far as the troop itself, it destroys all purple, similar to Knight Coronet, and then it ends up gaining Reflect and a bunch of armor. And then it's boosted by gems destroyed for how much armor it ends up getting. It's basically a defensive Knight Coronet with a 1 higher mana cost. Overall, pretty useless. I don't really see many instances where you'd bother using this instead of Knight Coronet. Knight Coronet's already super situational and mostly something you would only use as you're progressing through the game until you have better options, as the Mythic there is kind of better than bothering to use it, more often than not. However, this thing is just completely useless. I don't really see many contexts where you're going to bother bringing this out. Even if you see it in an arena draft, I don't really see why you would end up drafting this compared to most of the other options you have. And overall, you're pretty much just getting this to give an extra Kingdom Star to Sword's Edge, which I believe brings Sword's Edge to 23 stars, unless I'm missing something. Yep, 23, and also gets Sword's Edge to that extra level thing. I guess I'll do that. I was planning on farming this place later anyway, so it's a nice place that doesn't have too much burn, so finally get that, as the game kind of wants us to now. though we're kind of blocked on those other annoying ones, because one thing that version 6.2 did bring in that I didn't forgot to mention is our first 26-star kingdom. So if you do end up having like super amount of progress, you will now be locked out of this because you have to upgrade both Zhejian to 18 as well as the other one to Zhejian, the Magrim Woods, or not to Zhejian, to you would have to do both Zhejian and Magrim Woods to level 18, something of which almost no one really has the resources to do, especially because not only is that a lot of resources, but they're both the exact same color. So even if you have the resources to do one of them, it's very unlikely you have the resources to do both of them, so I'm not sure how they're going to tweak that, because it ends up making it so your middle offer is this annoying... Oh, I don't have it today, but it'll often make it so your middle offer is an annoying, like, 1 event key for 25 gems, which is a complete waste and never worth going for. It's on the very long list of offers that are never good to go for, and it makes it happen pretty often, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but is a byproduct of that most recent patch that hopefully something will be done about into the future. But anyways, let's go over the rest of the stuff for this week. So as far as the event key drop table, we do have a nice shiny new screen here. We will be getting some graphical changes coming pretty soon. They haven't done too many of the menus. However, this key menu is one of those menus that have gotten redone. And honestly, I kind of like this. They did a really controversial change to a lot of the visuals around, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, where they kind of made the style of the game pretty generic. However, this is the direction they're going, and I'm curious to see how clean some of the menus are going to look, because honestly, I actually really like the redesign on this menu. Really easy to see what resource goes to each thing, how many keys you have. Just, it looks really nice, and be interesting to see, as this is the first step to them overhauling the visual style for the game. As far as most of the menus, obviously all the troop art and stuff like that likely to be remain completely unchanged, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with that in an upcoming patch when they do the rest of the visual changes. But anyways, of course, as far as the event key drop tables associated to Sword's Edge, as you can see on this menu now as well. As far as what's in Sword's Edge, oh, did I not save the thing? I thought I did. Whoops. Oh, let me go set it back again. Let's go down to Sword's Edge. I guess I forgot to click Save Filter, which makes sense. I do forget to click that sometimes. I will do it by base rarity. So everything you see here, except for the 4 Magrim Woods troops, is obtainable from the event key, or did I say Magrim? Everything here, except the 4 Crypt Keepers troops, are available from the event key drop table. This does include a new, one of the few new troops, the Game Warden. It is better just to get him off of gold keys. However, he should be in the event key drop table as well, though I would advise just mostly getting him from the gold key drop table. As far as mythics are concerned, nothing really too special here, both kind of tanky. I do feel like I use Champion of Guard a little bit more, just because it has a nice AoE with a little bit of side effects there. I guess a little bit of stats while being tanky as well. This one's mostly just like a super tank, but similar to Stonehammer, suffers from many of the, as well as that Horde Mimic, suffers from a very similar issue where it's super tanky, but its ability is generally not that good. And their mana cost just makes it, because they're all mythic, they have really high mana costs. It just makes it so they're more so just blocking your good troops more so than really helping anything on your team. And they're rather slow options that tend to not really get used. So overall, I would say this is a pretty good skip week unless you're looking to really upgrade the kingdom. Not even that many good utility troops to even be getting here. The most useful one is one you could just get from the faction anyways, which isn't even in the event key drop table, which is an Empower green to purple, which is used on occasion for some Guild War teams and some double Empower teams. As far as one utility pickup that you might want to try going for if you don't already have it, though, you might see me using from time to time. I can't remember. I might even suggest it for one of the teams this week. But Sir Quentin Hadley, he's most noteworthy for his 50% mana start to all knights, which is used primarily for Guard's avatar, which is not from this place, even though there is the Champion of Guard here. However, the actual Guard one is from Whitehelm. However, this can be synergized with that one Whitehelm troop for a half mana start. It also has a good cleanup option, not only having a double convert with one of them going into skulls, but also a double damage poke. So he's mostly primarily used for his 50% mana start. And if you don't have that utility troop, that's probably one of the only things really worth going for from this kingdom, unless you're just looking to simply upgrade it. Queen Isabel can be okay on occasion, has like a weird damage poke into a bunch of mana accumulation, but it's normally too slow of a momentum, and it does end up sacrificing your turn. There's other green blues and just other troops in general they can end up doing mana accumulation off of. That just makes it not worth using in many situations. So overall, probably a skip week unless there's just those utilities you want to pick up, or simply getting stars on Sword's Edge to get it to 10 or 20 stars or whatever goal you're trying to end up getting for it. Anyways, aside from that, we have a world event going on since we don't have Guild Wars this week. Instead, we're having the Vault event and everything, but we still have a standard world event. It is the final week of the campaign as well, so if you haven't finished out the campaign tasks, definitely make sure to do so, especially if you end up buying the pass, as you'll be able to go get the Fairy Godmother. I covered a video on this the other day, so if you want teams for that, I covered it there. But she's pretty decent. She's the best wish gem creator in the game. She can backfire a little bit, but going forward after this week, because this is the final week that wish gems are available, but after this week, she'll be the most viable way to do wish gems going forward, so definitely worth considering utilizing. She basically has 3 release dates. One of them was last Monday, the other one is today if you bought the standard pass, and for free to play, you'll be able to get it whenever it rotates in Soulforge or whenever the next Zhejian event ends up rolling it back around, and I would assume that sometime in summer, probably late summer, so you can end up getting that then if you're going 100% free to play or didn't end up getting this campaign pass. Anyways, where were we? Let's go over the world event. So the final week of the world event, main thing that you need to know is you basically just have to skip over the Judge of the Dead. It'll eventually just keep looping the battles over and over again, so as long as you don't take Judge of the Dead, you will be taking the correct battle. Theoretically, they all have different scores for how much they give, but as long as you don't take Judge of the Dead ever, you will be hitting the most optimal room that you can be doing. So just do not take Judge of the Dead, and you're doing the event correctly. And that's basically all you need to know. So pretty straightforward event this time around. So pretty nice. You also have extra skull damage and spell damage off the token. So it should be really easy to do overall due to that extra damage. It is a bit of a weird restriction. Knights on yellow and purple. But as I mentioned earlier, Guards Avatar, Surquet, and Hadley. Pretty decent combination. Or even just trying to build anything off of Surquet and Hadley if you just pick it up from event keys this week. As most of your team, or all your team pretty much, unless whatever you do for hero, will be considered a knight. So you will be able to half mana start them. So definitely in event keys, if you don't already have it, Surquet and Hadley, really good pickup to end up considering this week. Highly, highly advised. Anyways, as far as other things that we have going on this week, this Tuesday we're going to be having a faction event for the Crypt, so you can end up getting that Empower Troop then, as well as just getting more shards to end up getting any of those, or any of them, for that matter, from the Underworld. This Wednesday we're going to be having the Griffin for that little air mastery thing. Thursday we have the class event for a Knight Hero class, which is arguably one of the worst, if not the absolute worst hero class in the entire game. So if nothing else, you probably don't have it maxed yet, so at least you'll be able to get some free XP from the free battles. Don't really advise doing anything more than that, as it is a super horrifically bad hero class, unless you just want to make leaderboard off it or something. And aside from that, this Friday we do have a raid event where we're going to be getting a new Glacial Peaks Explodey weapon. Overall, it seems kind of average. It does have a Blue Storm on it, but I believe Jar of Eyes, even though it is a 2 higher mana cost, will still be better, because Jar of Eyes creates a Blue Storm into its own color, whereas I believe the one this Friday is a green-red. So even though I believe it explodes blues, it doesn't actually use blue itself, meaning that the Blue Storm doesn't help a mana accumulate back into itself, similar to how Jar of Eyes does, which was probably one of the main reasons why Jar of Eyes did get nerfed from a 14 cost to a 16. But overall, I'd say it's basically a weaker version of Jar of Eyes, what's coming this Friday, so still worth getting, obviously, but it does seem to be a bit of a weaker option in comparison. Anyway, aside from that, Soulforge, I actually did not look at yet. Let's see. Is there anything good here in Soulforge this week? I assume not, based on what I'm seeing so far. Does not seem to be any... Oh gosh, one of the worst mythics in the entire game. Oh no, I've kind of was using Wardbreaker a little bit in that one team. So if you saw the team that we ended up doing with that one goblin, I did end up mentioning, actually I probably still have it here if you want to see it real quick. I think that was the only one I didn't end up deleting. But this one right here, Marilith, Fairy Godmother, Scourge of Honor, Wardbreaker. There was this one team. I don't feel like Wardbreaker is used too often in the current state of game. However, there are some situations where it can still be used, and this one team right here is kind of one of those instances. He's also pretty good with Bronzelock Pistol, which is a bit of a weirder weapon, but using that with like a triple damage burning hero class can kind of get some pretty decent synergy, and they don't have any mana conflict with each other, so you can end up getting a little bit of value there. Overall, definitely not one of the better mythics in the game. However, based on what's currently in Soulforge this week, it is probably your best option if you're looking to craft something right now. But overall, probably a skip on most of the Soulforge, unless there's just like a really specific pick that you end up wanting to go for. Similarly, weapons also not really much here. Do keep in mind, though, this is one of the pieces of Nefertani. This is needed for Dustbringer, if I'm not mistaken. This weapon right over here. Where's Dustbringer? Right there. So this is one of the 3 weapons that you need to craft a Dustbringer. So if you are playing free to play, it did not end up getting these in the past, and you still want to craft Dustbringer, this is one of the 3 components, as you can see right there, that are required to end up making a Dustbringer. So if you're going to get anything this week, you're probably looking to pick up Blade of Nefertani, not because Blade of Nefertani is good, but because you'll eventually need it for Dustbringer. And even if you feel like you aren't going to craft Dustbringer now, I would advise getting the components of it, these 3 components, because it will take forever for these to roll around, as you have to wait for all 3 of these events to happen. I can't remember what all these are associated to, but one of them is Sword's Edge, and it'll just make it so you don't have to wait for Sword's Edge to rotate back around. So even if you don't plan on immediately crafting this, at least you'll have the 3 components that are super annoying to get, and you won't have to worry about it. So if you're playing free-to-play or running around for Season 2, I believe it was, of Gems of War, you can end up getting these and get this one of the 3 components, so you won't have to worry about it later. So that's probably the only thing I would say that's really worth going for, and I would advise having it before the end of this week, just so in case you do want to craft this into the future, that's one less step that you have to go for or have to wait out. So do highly advise getting this if you don't already have it. Dustbringer, I don't feel like I use too often, but you know, it's still good to have if you're going for full completion. It's one of the steps you'd want to go for it, and it can take upwards of a year for those 3 kingdoms to rotate around. So getting one of them out of the way now, probably a pretty good idea, even if you don't have an immediate need for a Dustbringer nor the resources for it. At least have the 3 components ready to go. Anyways, let's go and show a bunch of teams. So, of course, we're going over all the standard teams, all of which will be in the description below if you want to go and copy-paste any of them. First off, for the World event, you probably already saw it a little bit on that other screen. It is a night restriction, with the other color restriction, I believe, is yellow-purple. With this, we're basically just going a somewhat standard guards avatar team. We can't do it fully because there's not a good empower for the option, so we're kind of just using a paladin for the extra yellow as well as a damage poke. You can do a decent amount of concentrated damage, assuming it doesn't take damage on itself, because it does do less damage if it has less armor. Similar to guards avatar, does more damage if it has more armor, less otherwise. And we're basically just looking to burst them down. We get a half mana start off of Sir Quentin Hadley, which honestly, if you have it, pretty much every single team you should be using for this event will incorporate Sir Quentin Hadley. The super cheap team I mentioned doesn't have it, just in case you don't have it. However, I do highly advise getting Sir Quentin Hadley and incorporating him into your team, regardless of what team that might end up being. And right here, we're just using Reflection of Good, so we can end up getting a bunch of status effects, keep them safe, and basically keep the team alive while getting a bunch of mana accumulation. Basically inverse of Essence of Evil, since you're not able to use Essence of Evil for the current World event. Next one, we have kind of a Black Manacle team. It's a nice standard, solid, cheap, easy to obtain AoE option that you can end up hitting all enemies. Also has a slight Devour chance to help keep things going. You can switch to a tankier hero class, however this one uses Archmages for the very high amount of purple mana accumulation, one to negate out the minus and the other 2 just to make sure we could 2-turn it. We do have a minus purple here, but it's get completely negated by the hero class, so you're basically at a +2/+2, the +2 brown into +2 purple effectively, as that's what it comes out to, and you have the extra yellow just to feed into everything else. Night Coronet does end up denying your purple here, however it's not too big a deal. It's mostly just here to tank, pretty okay tank. One of the few things Night Coronet ends up getting used for, and it can do a bit of damage burst. Lion Prince is a little bit of board control while also having the double poke, except its pokes are to the first 2 rather than first and last slot. And then Paladin once again for the yellow link, and for that little bit of extra mana accumulation. You can even like multi-up on this if you really wanted to, though it is a bit risky because if he starts falling behind and takes damage, you will start falling behind as well, and not having as much damage output, which can be a bit of a liability. Anyways, as far as the faction event, it is a red-purple restriction for the one tomorrow. For the Crypt, as far as ways that you can do this, is a pretty standard Tesla team. Can end up doing the trick. In this case, using Thrall as the mana accumulator based on what the restrictions are, and still using Urskea Shield. As far as for the higher range, of course, you can run any variant of a Zugov team just with a bunch of mana accumulation to end up supporting it. As far as pure faction is concerned, I actually completely forgot to go change it, so let me go do that right now. So, as far as pure faction is concerned, let's see. So we got ourselves the Crypt. You'll need one diverse team of a Lady Marana, a Lady Marana, a Lady Marana, and probably a Lady Marana. And then just change your banner accordingly to Lady Marana colors, which that seems about right. There we go. Okay, so that is your very diverse team of Lady Marana. One other option you can end up going for is end up putting a gray. I guess I'll do it just so it's not pure Lady Marana, because you actually do kind of want to have this. So this might seem a little bit weird having a transform green to purple when you don't have any purple on your team. However, you do actually kind of want to run a Graveseer on your team. The main reason for this is the enemy on the first and final battle will have access to a Graveseer, and they're going to be feeding that purple into a Spectral Knight, which will do a lot of true damage to you, and you don't want that to happen. So you have a Grave Knight here, or a Graveseer here, not because you need purple mana, though You kind of do for the boost ratio thing, but that's not as big a deal. But the main reason you have this is you need the Empower Graveseer to counter their Empower Graveseer. You want to make sure if the starting board has a bunch of purple that will end up leading to an extra turn, that you deny it by casting your Graveseer and let it instead of letting the enemy take it and getting a bunch of value into something that will absolutely obliterate you, particularly on the very last battle of the 500 Pure faction. So it's mostly just a precaution to make sure you don't die on the first and particularly the last battle of the Delve. You don't really use it much otherwise, but you do want to have it just as a backup plan. But otherwise, you're basically just casting Lady Mirana with insta-kill until you win, and you just keep repeating that until it eventually insta-kill, or you hit it enough times where it just dies without needing an insta-kill. And that's pretty much the main plan. Graveseer to counter Graveseer and keep spamming Lady Mirana until you win. And that is the entire premise of this faction. Anyways, as far as the Knight Hero class, a couple different ways you could do this. However, basically just feed a bunch of Lance Knights extra blue link into any blue weapon you want. It doesn't really matter which one this is, as long as it hits all enemies. You can end up going for that little Frost Orb off of 250 wins from Frost Mage Hero class. You can run with Dawnbringer. You can run basically any blue weapon you want. As long as it hits all enemies, you should be fine for rolling out those free battles there. And anyways, aside from that, we do have weekend raids. A couple different ways you could do this as well. However, it's mostly just Mang into Freya as far as with the combination that you're going to want. Mang ends up tearing all the armor off of Zugoth. Freya ends up killing it. We have Copy Hat here for a little bit of mana accumulation. And I end up putting Mirror Queen here mostly because I have no clue what actually happens if you try to copy a Zugoth in that game mode. And I'm kind of curious to figure out what will happen. So it would be pretty funny to see what ends up happening there. So you might want to incorporate it in your team just to see if that would be kind of broken. Because I don't think we've ever had Mirrored Halls possible when we end up having the raid event the first time with Freya with the standard raid event. Because I'm pretty sure Mirrored Halls did not exist at the time. So I'm very curious what on earth will happen if we copy that Zugoth, because that's a troop you're normally never able to have on your team. Obviously, a standard Zugoth you can. However, this would allow you to have that really weird Zugoth that has the capability of bypassing insta-kill while also having like a super insta-kill immunity, even stronger than normal ones. So it'd be interesting to see what happens when a Zugoth of the same caliber ends up getting used against it, as normally if you use a standard Zugoth against it, it will not actually die. However, in this particular instance, it might, because if you had it's something that has immune to insta-kill, that Zugoth normally will hit through it. But it'd be interesting to see what will happen if you have your own and to see what that interaction will end up being. So she's mostly there for that purpose, and also for that backup resummon in case Copycat's not enough. But overall, should be a kind of interesting raids, because I really want to see how that mechanic ends up working out. But anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for now. We did cover a video as well on all the Explore teams that you might want to be running for the Vault event. So if you haven't already checked that out, definitely make sure to go check that video, as not only did we get a Mimic there from the 6.2 patch, kind of going over that, but we also ended up going over every single Explore team that you can be using to basically farm up the Vault events, or at least the ones I tend to use a bit more often at all these standard ranges. Anyways, if you guys still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a like on the video, as it helps out a lot, and I will catch you guys soon. Hope you all have a wonderful week. Best of luck with the Vault event. Hope you get a bunch of loot. Catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching. Also, and happy St. Patrick's Day later this week. Goodbye, everyone.